Thanks very much, Elmagul, and thanks very much to the Chamber for this opportunity to speak to you today. Let me just share my screen if I can. I think that's accepted. Can everyone see that?
Yes, yes, we can see it. Yeah.
Fine. Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, well, let me just animate and move on. So, you know, I was thinking about what I wanted to speak to you today about, and really, I think it's appropriate not just from a professional perspective, but also a personal perspective, to really look at some of the aviation, the industry trends that we've seen since the onset of the pandemic over a year ago now, and then perhaps drill in specifically to look at you know, how Air Astana are addressing these particular issues. And there's a couple of key points, somewhat loosely related, which I'll try and tie together over the course of the next 10 or 15 minutes or so, with some time for some questions, I guess, at the end. The first topic I wanted to touch upon is really the difficulty that airlines around the world have been facing with since the pandemic, with all the different requirements, changes in visa regimes, protocols in terms of testing or vaccination. And I'm sure everyone who's traveled over the last few months has seen queues of people pulling out different bits of paper to demonstrate their ability or eligibility to go on that flight, which is, you know, driven, you know, enormous complexity to our ground handling teams. And I suppose the key problem here, and specifically in regard to vaccination and or testing, it is really this inability to have a secure and verifiable source of data where passengers can hold this data and airlines can recognize this data. You know, we've seen this across the whole of the industry, not just in aviation. You know, we're all aware of how a Shook app is being used across the cities country, in fact, at the moment, which, you know, verifying people's ability to enter certain facilities, restaurants and gyms and even airports as of earlier in the week. One of the key difficulties is that globally in aviation, there isn't a one consolidated voice. So, you know, I'm showing a slide here about the IATA travel pass, but similarly, which is a global initiative from IATA, the Aviation Association, but it's not being adopted across the whole world. Russia and Eurasia have their own pass, which is called Travel Without COVID. China has their own separate pass, and so it's quite difficult to, as an airline, to know which effectively horse to bet on what is going to be the all-encompassing pass in the future. Now, I think if we go back to periods pre-9/11, when the security protocols were first adopted and then slowly adopted around the world, we will see a stage in the future where airlines and airports, in order to manage this travel and manage boarding of passengers, will have a secure digital app. We're in the process of testing the IATA travel pass at Air Astana, and this is a facility whereby labs who have undertaken any vaccinations or PCR testing with passengers will securely distribute this information via eGov into the IATA travel pass. Passengers will also be able to verify this with this IATA travel pass what are the requirements of the particular destination they're flying to, and then create a OK to board board message. Now, this is one of a number of travel passes which will be launched. It was first trialled by Singapore Airlines in March this year, successfully on their Singapore-London flight. And at the moment, over 60 airlines worldwide are signed up to this. But as I mentioned earlier, there are quite a few different passes being put across the market globally, and this is what we really need, is some form of consolidation, so that this digitally secure, verified passenger information can be held by the passenger, demonstrated and shown at check-in, because we say we've all seen the multiple bits of paper, the unsecured and perhaps even falsified bits of paper being shoved into the hands of check-in agents across the world. What it doesn't mean is, IATA won't be defining what the requirements of a particular country are, but really it's the facilitation and enables secure storage of data to facilitate the travel. And taken to its sort of progress degree, we can imagine in future that the QR code which this will generate, this OK to travel QR code, will then be scanned at boarding gates rather than simply boarding cards, to really reduce that human interaction at all these touch points. But I suppose the point I wanted to make here is, we as an industry, we do have to make steps to adopt similar passes. The difficulty is the rather unequal global landscape at the moment, with so many different, if you like, vying products available on the market. So really, that's the sort of the first difficulty and industry issue that we, as an aviation industry, need to adopt. The second point I wanted to talk about really is about how aviation globally is really changing its nature and the segments they're operating during this pandemic period. As we know, much of the international corporate travel, business travel, our historical strong markets are just not operating at the moment. There's restrictions at both ends of the route. There's eligibility issues. There's entry issues in terms of the visa, and those business routes aren't really working. So what we've done at Air Astana, and certainly is the case across many airlines, is to really refocus on a home market leisure strategy. And no doubt you would have all seen that we've been operating tour operator or charter packages, charter programs to destinations like Matala in Sri Lanka, Hurghada, and Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt, and have recently launched Batumi as well as another leisure destination, predominantly filled with Kazakh originating traffic, because it's so very difficult to manage routes where there's uncontrollable traffic, with people booking onto those flights from any market, from any global OTA, without real verification and validation of the traveller eligibility. The reasons why this has become apparent and a real trend is that these types of leisure routes, dominated by point of origin Kazakhstan, it's controllable traffic. Tour operators know where passengers are going. In the example of Sri Lanka, in fact, only a certain number of hotels were allowed to be used by tourists. And of course, having that on a free sale for anyone to book would have created enormous difficulties, and thus the use of tour operator traffic. In this particular instance, it was a TUI or Kaz Tour in Kazakhstan. But it doesn't come without its difficulties. you'll be aware the COVID situation globally changes, and it changes rapidly. It was only this week that we had to suspend our flights to the Maldives, which has been a very good and strong route for this market since December when we launched it. We even went up to 6 frequencies during the Nowruz period. That flight is now suspended, and we're repatriating passengers back. And similarly, we've seen this with reductions on Antalya, with the growth of COVID in Turkey over the last 3 or 4 weeks, which is now improving. We understand. So there are a couple of other opportunities. In fact, this is a first glimpse of some of the creative that we will be launching. We plan to operate to Podgorica in Montenegro, starting from the 9th of June from the Sultan and the 10th of June from Almaty, which again is another destination. It's a visa-free destination for Kazakh citizens, again simplifying that ability of ours to restart flights. So it's actually not just Air Astana that's taken such an approach. Globally, we've seen the capacity that has been put back into the market is really where local tour leisure traffic has been available to use. I'll just touch on briefly cargo. Obviously, with the reduction of the global international belly space of wide-bodied aircraft, wide-bodied passenger aircraft operating, there has been a real shortage of cargo capacity. And in addition to that, a real increase in the requirement to urgently carry COVID-related medicines and PPE, personal protective equipment, across the world. And so we took the decision at Air Astana, and we're not alone in this, many airlines around the world have done this, was to reconfigure one of our 767 aircrafts into a semi-freighter, whereby we took the passenger seats out of the main deck and have used that for cargo carriage. And it's actually been pretty successful, generating up to about 10% of our monthly revenues using that particular cargo freighter. How long this will be viable for will depend, of course, how long wide-bodied belly space capacity remains unavailable with passenger flights not really recovering. If we look at the example of airlines like Singapore Airlines or Cathay Pacific, they've only recovered 10% of their capacity compared to the first quarter in 2019. So over 90% down in terms of passenger capacity or available seat capacity. So it gives you an indication of the reduction in passenger aircraft available for cargo carriage. I just want to spend a second just to talk about the complexities of starting a new flight or re-establishing an existing flight. We often read on our social media, when are you going to start a flight to India, or when are why can't you resume more frequencies to Russia? Actually, it's a very complicated matter, more complicated than the usual processes, which is just analysing demand, understanding your market segments, and then addressing them appropriately. We have to address permissions, both from our IGC area, ENVICA, Intergovernmental Commission, to reassume flights. That's got to be reciprocated at the other end of the route. There will be certain protocols which will require, as I mentioned earlier, PCR tests or even vaccinations, and some are more stringent than others. And of course, this is constantly changing as the COVID situation changes. It was only a month ago our flights to the Maldives were very, very strong indeed towards the end of the Nowruz period, and now we're suspended due to the proximity to India and difficulties they've had there. So it's an ever-changing and even more complex issue than it has been previously. And to give perhaps another example of that, many of you will be aware of our operations out of Atiral in Western Kazakhstan, which historically operated from Atiral to Amsterdam and Frankfurt. And at the beginning of January, the Dutch government implemented a scheme whereby antigen tests were required to be undertaken within 4 hours of departure from Atiral, from any point going into Amsterdam, which of course administratively was just and logistically impossible to facilitate, which meant we had to move our operation over to Frankfurt and operate Atiral Frankfurt. Later in March, the Dutch government softened their requirements, and it's now on an antigen test. It's a PCR test within 72 hours, which is very manageable and almost like the default, if you like, which means that we can now re-establish our Atiral Amsterdam flight, but still having to maintain our Atiral Frankfurt flight because South Americans and South Africans aren't permitted to transit via Amsterdam. The point of this being is actually it's a much more complex world, especially for connecting passengers. As we know, many of our oil and gas workers into Tengiz are coming from across the world. So what's our sort of current situation? Just to give you a brief sort of update, we're operating 18 of our aircrafts currently, 25 international routes and 15 routes are re-established. The aircraft types, you will notice that our 757, our oldest aircraft, has been totally replaced by the brand new A321LR, which is really a trend we've seen. Many airlines around the world have taken this opportunity, this downtime opportunity, if you like, to relook at their fleet, take out the most fuel inefficient, and repopulate their fleets with fuel efficient newer aircraft. And I'll give you a few slides on our LR in a moment. As I mentioned, the cargo has also become a far more significant part of our business. So, where are we compared to an equitable period, which I guess is probably March 2019 rather than March 2020. As a group, which includes FlyArystan, our low-cost carrier, we've recovered to about 78, it's actually 79 in the last month in April, with 78-79% of our capacity measured in available seat kilometers, compared to March 21 versus March 19. The big difference is that our capacity domestically has grown very significantly with the growth of FlyArystan routes, whilst the international recovery rate in terms of capacity is very much down because we're not operating to Bangkok, Hong Kong, Beijing, London, Paris, and all those other routes that we were previously. So I mentioned that many airlines have taken the opportunity to renew their fleet during this COVID period, and that's very clearly the case within Air Astana. And I imagine a number of you have already flown on the LR, which arrived a year or so back, but we're now up to 6 in the fleet, and we will be receiving extra or more aircraft of this particular configuration. It's far more efficient than the 757, which it replaces, with a considerable upgrade in regards to the product itself. Excuse the blatant advert, but I thought I'll just quickly throw in a 30-second video of the new aircraft itself. Yeah, I'm sorry if the sound quality wasn't excellent on that, but I think it gives you probably the idea. And as the advert said, it really is a new era of aircraft. I think all airlines have taken this opportunity of retiring old, inefficient aircraft and upgrading to newer products to really be in a very strong position to rebound when international traffic recovers to some degree. Look, the last point I wanted to talk about was, and really a trend that we've seen, is expectations from passengers. You know, when during these difficult COVID times, I think a lot of passengers have really looked very deeply and very heavily into the opportunities, not just the standard, you know, buy a ticket and travel, but what sort of personalized opportunities are there for me to sort of tailor my my requirement, whether that's, you know, selecting a specific seat on board, or, you know, buying additional baggage, or even bidding for an upgrade on our upgrade program, or sending parcels via our my mail program. And I think none more so than in fact a new product that we just launched a couple of weeks back called Meet and Greet. This is a product whereby, for those passengers who feel nervous about flying, a little unsure about all the requirements that are in place in terms of documentation and testing, we have a program where our passengers can be met on arrival at the airport and guided through check-in, immigration if it's an international flight, and through baggage collection, really to provide that extra bit of service. We do this at the moment in Almaty and the Sultan, and specifically in Frankfurt, where much of the traffic is connecting in from other markets across Europe and the US, often on different tickets or non-interlineable tickets. So they really are looking for that extra assistance on board, and or extra assistance at the airport to help them navigate these more difficult environment at the airport. And so that's a new product called My Meet, or Meet and Greet, which we've just launched a week or so back, which you can see details via our usual communication channels. So really, that's about it. You know, they're the key trends that, you know, I think we've recognised over this pandemic period. Of course, there's a lot more involved than just that, and you know, perhaps open it up to any questions that you may have, or even hand back to Almagul if need be.
Thank you very much, Richard, for this presentation. Very nice new aircrafts with these transforming chairs, and a very impressive number of international destinations for the moment. Any questions so far? Denis, I see that you just turned on your video. Maybe you want to ask something? We can't hear you, Denis. Your micro is
on since the beginning. I don't have any question. Nice presentation.
Okay, thank you.
You know, I think one of the one of the biggest issues we need to manage as an industry is really this secured and verified vaccination and PCR test protocols, which is an absolute must. The governments will be have less propensity to open up their borders without this secure data, and really some sort of mechanism by which it can be delivered to all the stakeholders.
And Richard, in order to open one new destination, how much time does it take? Because I see that it is very like big process. I mean,
You know,
yeah.
it can go really rather fast. You know, I gave the example of Podgorica, which we will open on sale probably tomorrow. We've been working on that. We knew that Montenegro would, or we've been lobbying with Montenegro to issue a visa waiver program for Kazakh citizens. They've done in previous years. The EU still haven't enabled leisure visas for Kazakh citizens. So we were looking for alternatives in light of Antalya being restricted, which came to light and came to be the case. And so we've been working on Podgorica, in fact, Tivat initially, for about 2 months now. And it was about a month ago that we got confirmation of the visa exemption for Kazakh citizens. Then we had to go to the IGC, Intergovernmental Commission, and last week we got the permission to open up to 5 flights from Almaty and 3 from Nur-Sultan, and we're starting off with 2 and 2. But we hope to increase that during the course of the summer. So really, I'd say you know, the Podgorica launch has been about a 2.5 month process. You know, we still have, and that's not including actually selling any seats, which we haven't done yet. But we have until the 9th of June to do so. We're hoping for a rather rapid response from the market, which we think we'll have.
Yeah, I see. Okay, thank you, Richard. So let's pass to the second topic, and let's focus more on a local tourism. Timur, can you hear us? And can we hear you?
Yes, Sam, I am ready. But something happened with my connection. That's why I haven't chance to join you. My face it's will not visible. And I would like to ask you to switch on my presentation, please.
Yeah, okay. Amaguli, can you authorize the presentation?
Yes,
can
yes,
you
sure.
See it?
Yes, yes, I see it.
Okay, great. So let's start.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. I'm very excited that you are interested in tourism issues in our country and specifically in Almaty region, because frankly, Almaty region is the #1. It's the best tourism destination in the country. And frankly, I was excited by recovery rate of Air Astana. It looks very high and very promising. And I would like to share with you some ideas which we prepared together with local and international experts concerning the problem of tourism development in Almaty region. As you know, the tremendous growth of domestic tourism caused by closure of border due to the COVID has revealed serious problem with the lack of appropriate infrastructure, low level of service, tourist awareness of existing tourism products in the region. The issue of competitiveness of the regional tour products, inconsistency of price and quality, of course, problem of standards of provided services in comparison with some foreign destination, as you know. This is largely caused by the unwillingness, unfortunately, unwillingness of business owners to invest in training and education of their employees. In this connection, it must be emphasized that there are practically no educational institutions and universities on the educational sector of our country that meet real international standards and requirements. Unfortunately, it's true. Despite the fact that tourism product of Almaty and Almaty region is practically it's one destination, and we have to make positioned as a whole as a one destination. Unfortunately, state administration, responsible organization, government bodies hasn't sustainable contact and sustainable cooperation with other stakeholders of tourism market. And unfortunately, we practically haven't proper coordination between all the participants of tourism market. And there is still no clear mechanism for interaction, cooperation between the tourist business and NTA, National Tourism Administration, and Regional Tourism Administration. As a consequence, there is a lack of sustainable cooperation, not only between government and business, even between business to business. Unfortunately, we haven't strong, reliable coordination and cooperation. And one of the most important issues is transport accessibility. The majority of the tourist transport is physically and morally old and outdated and does not meet the requirements of tourists and other passengers, especially for the condition of safety and comfort. The road schedules and lack of regular race or shuttles do not allow realizing the full tourist potential of a number of sites. As you know, for example, on weekend, Charing sites, it's overbooked and over tourism situation. And it was because irregular and not comfortable shuttles exist on these roads. And one of the key points for the tourism development in the region, it's providing some good and reliable transportation system. Also, one of the key problems, it's our lack of correct statistics and analytics. And in this case, we have to stress that unfortunately we are not ready for the formation really big data. As a result, it's practically impossible to carry out correct planning, marketing targeting, building focused, and attracting serious investors. To address the above issues, it is necessary to radically revise and change the existing approach and development program of the tourism industry of Almaty and Almaty region, especially taking into account post-COVID trends. We propose to implement 3-year tourism roadmap, which should cover 6 priority areas. First of all, it's reorganization of the system of state management tourism industry in the region. Second, creation of travel bubble corridors and safe tourism zones between Kazakhstan, Almaty region, and Kyrgyzstan, and other states of Great Silk Road area. Third, improving the competitiveness of the regional tourism products and effective promotion. Fourth, education as a key factor in ensuring the quality of tourism services. Fifth, stimulating the recreation of the Kazakh people in the tourist infrastructure of the region. And sixth, implementation of innovation and digitalization of tourism ecosystem. Next, please, next one. Here you can see our proposal for the reorganization of existing governance policy in Kazakhstan and specifically in Almaty region. AA, it means Akimat of Almaty, and AT, it means Akimat of Almaty region, it's Taldykurgan. Tourism board, it's a structure which still doesn't exist in our country. What means tourism board? It's a platform where the private business and governmental structures all stakeholders of the tourism market has to create right policy and unify approach to realize progressive project and to find right solution for the problem in our industry. And as you know, everywhere in France, in England, everywhere we have similar structure like tourism board at national level and regional level. And our first proposition is to create some kind of tourism board with participation of major touristic and companies and others participants of tourism market. It's air companies, transportation companies, hospitality sector, food and beverage, everybody who really worried about the future of our industry. And fortunately, we have a good chance to the next week on 26th of May, will be organized by both of Akimat special meeting for the discussion of our proposal. And as I told you before, we haven't now special professional organization for management and marketing our destination. And that's why we have to create structure which already have everywhere in success in tourism sense countries. It's destination management organization. And it has to be one structure for both regions. And of course, due to some specific questions for example, in Taldyk-Kurgan, Alakul region, etc., there has to be two different organizations, some kind of tourist office. Now it exists. Visit Almaty in Almaty and tourist office, tourist information office, GTSU in Taldyk-Kurgan. We detailly study what the staff, quality of staff, quality of education of existing Department of Tourism in our region, and we realize that just few of people have enough professional skills in order to face to the challenge due to the COVID situation everywhere in our country. Next, please. In our working group for preparation, this roadmap for the local government was, I think, very interesting proposal of Mars company from Malaysia. Tax integrated platform makes flying safe, simple, and seamless. It's some scheme how it could be realized on a safe, no barrier, and less contact space in airports, in other points on a border, etc. From left to right, and then from right to left. Practically all steps of potential passenger and clients, tourists, under control of biometric and digital service of software, which was proposed by this company. Next one, please. And they prepare a special option for Kazakhstan, which show us how it could be done properly and safely. It could be implemented in airports. It could be implemented not only in airports of Almaty. It could be implemented in all airports in neighbor countries, in Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan. And in this case, we will create the base for real travel bubble. Silk Road travel bubble or seamless corridor inside our very promising and interesting area, especially after COVID, because we have enough resources. We have enough interesting places in order to face new challenges, especially after COVID. Next slide, please. Concerning the competitiveness of our tourism product, we have to show the most promising niche or sectors which we going to realize in the nearest future. First of all, it's RV parks or caravannings, and I know for sure that in France and Europe, it's in general, it's very popular and very safe kind of tourism. And we are going to create nets of campings, RV campings, caravanning, etc., along the Silk Road, not only in Kazakhstan, but of course with our partners from Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and practically in all territory of our country. As you know, a lot of infrastructure project was planned in our state program for tourism development, which was issued 2 years ago, but unfortunately, program keen on the heavy infrastructure, and one of the sample it's creation this resort in Mangostau, Rixos resort. It's very expensive, of course, it's very luxurious, but it's cost huge money, and in our point of view, it's more reasonable to spend this kind of governmental investment to create thousands RV camps and other soft infrastructure objects like glamping ethno parks, and some kind of adventure tourism. Next one, please. And fortunately, recently was approved some additions in tourism law. It's with operate from 2022. Just a look, reimbursement of airfare for children as part of tour package under the Kids Go Free program, 100%. Of course, it will be stimulate domestic tourism. Provision of investment preferences to businessmen building facilities in priority tourist area. Tax and custom preferences. Reimbursement of cost for construction of roadside service facilities, tourist accommodation 10%, and maintenance of sanitary units. It means 83,000 tenge per month. Government will supply for the businessman or some object which could provide some toilet service along the road. Reimbursement for the purchase of vehicles for tourism purposes and equipment for ski resort development. It's also very nice because as you see earlier, RV parks and RV tourism and caravannings, it's necessity to use this kind of preferences and support from the government. And also interesting measures like payment to tour operators for each foreign tourist brought in a part of tour package. 15,000 tenge, it's not so much, it's about $30, but I think if we will calculate in a scale of all country, it's quite a good sum of money. Please, next one. And also very interesting idea. Recently we create Kazakh Alpine Club. When we created this kind of public organization, NGO, we have a model, we have example of European mountain and alpine clubs, which very efficiently and successfully work in practically in all over the world, from Japan to United States. And we know that in France, they have very nice and very success history of development tourism infrastructure in mountain area, and they have a lot of people who really involved in tourism business and tourism activity, or activity which very closely connected to the tourism activity in Alps area, and a lot of positive things which we would like realized in Kazakhstan, basically on an experience of mainly European Alpine clubs. Next. It's our objectives of Kazakh Alpine Club. Later, I will send you, Asem, our manifest in English, and you could spread within your community. Next one.
Okay.
Practically all kind of activity in mountains we should cover in order to be success and efficient. And we are waiting that at the 2022 number of members of Kazakh Alpine Club will be more than 3,000 people, and at least 100 juridical organization like funds, like private company, etc. Next one, please. Please, it's. I think for our French colleague, it's very simple and understandable. And what we would like to propose to our colleagues from your community, from community of expats, and especially for the French community, exchange of French experience in managing destination, because frankly we used organizational chart of tourism governance policy in France very actively, and we was excited that you are very efficiently divided responsibility. For example, promotion on the foreign market, it's responsible for Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Financing and promotion for domestic tourism, creation infrastructure, and etc. It's responsibility of Ministry of Economy. And that's why one of the interesting issues which we would discuss you more actively and detailedly, it's exchange of experience with the agency National Pool Less Checks Vacancies. It's very nice experience, and I was born during the Soviet time, and we have also success story of our trade union policy, which provide the right for the rest for everybody, because government was has enough money in order to supply and donate it. Practically each person and each people in our Soviet country. It was before, of course, but now we have very nice experience in France. And I would like to ask you to assist us or find some partners in order to get right and very important advices for us, because we just started this kind of activity. And other field of potential cooperation is the field of RV camps and caravannings. Also, I would like to mention that all the proposal in our roadmap has initiators and practically ready for implementation. I mentioned this Malaysian products. We have the same products and same proposal for the educational skills, and our partners, it's Switzerland institutes, educational institutes from the States, and we are going that from the next year in Almaty and in Taldykurgan will be open some college which based on real international good practice, and our goals and our target to create the mass of some kind of tourist infantry, because now you know that Kazakh people looking for the management position. And unfortunately, we have quite big number of management, high-level managers, but we haven't some service peoples. And our target, it's exactly to create this kind of infantry for tourism. Also, I would like to tell you that we have also good proposal for the digitalization. And hopefully, nearest time, we will find understanding with local administration and with central government in order to convert the pilot project, for example, for the stimulation program, stimulation project for the local people, similar like Agency Nationale pour le checks vacancies. And we are going to force our efforts to create this kind of business council. And I think, and I hope that some peoples from your community also be ready to participate in this business council, which will be created in Almaty and the Almaty region and nearest future. And of course, I have just 15 minutes, and I think it's gone already. That's why I'm ready to answer for your question. And for sure, our organization, Kazakh Alpine Club, and a lot of real people from the real sector of tourism ready for cooperation with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Timur. Are there any questions for now?
Yes, there are some.
Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Duysengaliyev. First of all, thank you very much for this presentation. It was very interesting, and I'm also convinced that tourism, especially in the region of Almaty, is a huge potential. Just to quick word about me, I'm representing the French Trade Mission here in Kazakhstan. So I'm supporting French SMEs developing here in Kazakhstan. And I think, as you said, we have good experience and good companies that could work in the tourism projects here in Kazakhstan. I had one question where you were talking about government support, and I saw that there was a purchase of vehicles, 25% reimbursement. How is that? How does that work? Is there a limit or?
No. It means the government will subsidize 25% from the cost of vehicles. For example, if we buy some RV from France, it's cost $100,000. 25,000 it will be donated by government.
Okay, so it's donated to the company, or is it paid directly to the supplier?
To the company, to the person. I hope so. It will be implemented in 2022, and I think during this period we will find right points for each questions. Is it physical person or corporate sector? And
Okay, so
if you will assist us and make some advice, we will be happy.
With pleasure. Also, you were talking about mountain projects, and have you been in touch with Compagnie des Alpes, who actually did in 2000 I think it's 2017, they did a whole study about the potential for ski resorts in the Almaty region. Okay.
I was personally involved with, because at that time I work in tourism department of Almaty and know them.
Okay. Okay, perfect. And also one other question, do you plan on implementing guarantees for foreign investors in such projects?
Yes, sure. Now we have some proposal which discussed on a governmental level for the creation special regime for the foreign investors, not only for the industry project, for the oil and gas, especially for tourism. And hopefully, again, maybe with your assistance, we put on the table to the government all things which you're interested by foreign investors, and especially for France. Because for me personally, I know that you have success story for the mountain tourism, for the ski resorts, and very important thing in my point of view, it's creation the environment and this kind of tourism. For example, you provide governmental program for the school children, which have a chance to the winter time going to the Alps and skiing over there, and it's donated by government.
Yeah.
And if you would like to build some heavy infrastructure in the mountain, we also have to have similar program. Because as you know, in Almaty, just 1 or 3% skiing. And it's not enough in order to again provide quantity for the tourism, for the ski resorts, for example.
Sure, definitely. Well, then I guess my last question is, but it's more private. Will it be possible to meet maybe next week?
Yes, sure. It's after 26th, it's Thursday. Maybe next Wednesday.
Okay.
Okay, all right, that's private. Sorry. Okay.
Conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So that's why we exist, the chamber. Okay, thank you very much. And I pass the word to our final speaker, to Yerkin. Yerkin will talk about hospitality opportunities and traveling opportunities in Kazakhstan. And we'll try to make a little analysis on this topic. Yerkin, the floor is yours.
Hi, hello to everybody. See my screen?
Yes, we can hear and we can see.
Can you confirm if you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, super. Let me introduce myself. My name is Yerkin. I'm doing some research and marketing solutions in this field, in the field of tourism. I'm going to show you a few data about the recovery index, globally what's going on from the kind of helicopter view, what's going on with the countries. Maybe you're aware of some of your own countries, but just to know how countries are recovering from one another. Overall recovery index and the vaccine performing in different regions. Global trends was how do they influence Kazakhstani market, and we get some updates from the government data regarding the COVID containment and the vaccination data. Recent data from the press just a couple of days ago, they announced the getting better and better, and some market data about the demand recovery that might be interesting for you just to understand what's going on with the market. Let's take a look at the data from the SCIFT research team. It's one of the neighbor and are not really recovering yet. Some of them are performing better, some of them not. So you see the case of the Mexico and US and Russia at certain period of time, more or less successful in terms of recovery. If you go to the particular kind of countries that might be relevant for us, at least to see the case studies and to see how do they kind of behave, you see that more close to the kind of Mexico, Russia, China is doing more or less well in terms of the timing. The latest data is the April 2021. So if you take a look at the overall kind of macroeconomic conditions, you see the macroeconomic conditions globally is more or less okay, nothing is ruined, but we see that different kind of consequences of the crisis. And travel, like travel activity, lodging, flight, and car rental companies are more or less influenced heavily and still under the constraints of the government restrictions across the whole world. If you take a look at the particular regions like Asia Pacific is doing a little bit better in terms of the lodging, but still flights are very early recovery, and the rest of the segments is still down. If you take a look at the Europe kind of more contained more strictly, but still kind of car segment is more effective stage of the recovery yet. So Europe is just starting to open up, but they are more or less effective with the kind of vaccination rollout. And the case of the Middle East is more or less proactive in terms of the better equipped kind of lodging segment and better connectivity, because it was before the hub for the airlines international wise, but then they better converted into the domestic market. And we see that many Kazakhstani people go in there as well to the Middle East, thanks to the national carrier and other carriers coming to our market to connect our markets to the Middle East segment. If you take a look at the kind of comparison between recovery index and the average kind of new cases of the COVID, you see some signs of that cases going down, for example, in Russia, but the recovery is going up. So almost direct kind of correlation between if the case is going down and if the vaccination is going rolling up and the tourism is recovering faster and faster. Case of the United Arab Emirates, they were more proactive, but now they are more restricted because of this some increase of the COVID cases. At the same time, now is more under the control, and the tourism will be recovering a little bit faster than previous time. Case of US is one of the most successful case when you see the vaccination is more successful. I would say like more than 60% is updated almost every day. You see that recovery is fast enough and enough kind of liquidity, enough support from the government is bringing kind of tourism. To look at the Turkey case, because it's more or less relevant for us, you see that Turkey is more proactive in terms of recovery. It was that previous peak in Christmas time 2020 now is recovering faster, and they're managing more or less effective the containment. But at the same time, the COVID cases rise, so you see the second peak, and then the tourism recovery more or less slowed down. But it's promisable that by June and July and later there will be more recovered, because the industry is more, I would say, proactive, and the policy measures is for the tourism recovery. If you take a look at what's going on with the global hotelier segment, hospitality segment, you see that some hubs are still struggling because of different still restrictions, like Europe is more or less struggling. But in case of, for example, Moscow, it's, I would say, compared to nothing, of course, it's more recovered already. And from the Middle East segment, some Mexico or some leisure destinations in certain markets, more or less effectively recovering. It's the overall occupancy rate in the hotel segment. Of course, it's big destinations, but we don't see Kazakhstan here because it's not on the radar from the STR research. But still, we see that we might follow some of the cases of global examples. What's happened between 2020 and 2021 in terms of the kind of particular European cities, in terms of the occupancy rate, and you see that strong recovery, even though vaccination is started several months ago, but you see that it's more or less growing and promising demand for, and recovery is way more, twice or 3 times more than the previous year. So that's sign of the good recovery, or at least a good speed of the recovery. If we take a look at the booking window, it's slightly changed, and the average proportion of the new bookings for the previous. So we see that now people try not to have kind of faster decisions, so they wait and still kind of wait and see mode across the all markets. And we see that in terms of the booking window, we see that more people, instead of buying like 2 or 3 months in advance in the busy destinations, they try to do like at least like last week, or almost late last minute bookings are dominating the almost globally. So even in Kazakhstan case, even in Central Asia, in CIS countries, there's almost the same situation. So if you take a look, what's the main factors influencing accommodation bookings, you can consider yourself, like main is close proximity, like super close to the place where you're living, maybe somewhere no more than 300 to 500 kilometers away. Well, value for money is important. Cancellation policy is more or less important because it's the something might happen unexpectedly, like some segments or some regions might close, and then you need kind of more, I would say, more effective managing the cancellation policy. So the people is paying attention to more of this. So you see the rests as usual, like quality, friendliness, and any other factors. So it is across the whole globe, the factors that influence the whole globe now. We're gonna see what's going on with the Kazakhstan now. Kazakhstan is a red, blue, and orange or yellow zone now. So different regions is behaving slightly different. And then you can check on the kind of official site of the infokazakhstan.kz. You can check the map and see on each region. You can click on the each region and see what's the current restrictions of kind of latest decision from the regional kind of sanitary doctor. At the same time, like a couple days ago, Prime Minister's office reported that we're going, I mean, the amount of the people kind of spread of the virus is going slightly down, like up to 20%. And we have some reserves in terms of the amount of the kind of beds in the hospital, etc. At the same time, almost more than half of Kazakhstan is still in red zone, and the whole Kazakhstan is more or less in red zone. But I think with the more faster rollout of the vaccination, it will be more or less kind of more and more regions will be in a greener and more yellow zone. So the green and yellow, the less restrictive the situation might be. This is the reserves of the potential of the hospitals. You see the data, so we have some kind of reserves and we can manage, and kind of the COVID is more or less contained effectively, but some kind of industries are struggling still, like tourism. I'll give you some examples why we're still at the kind of lower or early stage of the recovery. So this is the overall vaccinations is more or less stabilized or even go down. So we'll see that week over week. And the vaccinations is the recent data is a little more than 1 million, almost 2 million kind of first. And the second shot is about almost 1 million already. And totally plus the same amount of million doses will be provided in the coming months. It's supposed to be better situation even 1 month ago, but vaccination is a little bit slowed down, but it's growing faster and faster, almost week over week. We see that ASHIK kind of application is rolling out across the whole country. You see more and more kind of entities, business entities using this ASHIK app. Is kind of local, I would say, pass or travel pass, I can call that, even culture and public kind of catering and the restaurants, and almost every businesses will be using that solution. Even those who are not kind of forced to do that, some of the companies and trying to kind of show that they are more or less comfortable and show that they are more trusted for the travelers, even though travelers or you as if you're living in Kazakhstan, it's not really comfortable, but still it's kind of consensus that this app will save more and more lives. At the same time, we see that some data from, for example, 1.4 million people which are already kind of downloaded this application, about 27 of them already registered like a red kind of zone. People is mostly in the Astana airport, and from tomorrow they will be Almaty airport will be using this application as well. So it will be less comfortable. At the same time, it's kind of consensus that we need to use that at this period of time. So we see the rollout of the vaccination, the kind of latest number of yesterday, like you see again, almost close to 1 million already, like about 10%. If we take a look at the comparison with the other countries, we see that the United States is leading, UK and other kind of developed countries is more or less leading in terms of the total numbers. At the same time, the percentage is Kazakhstan already up to 10%, close to Russia and close to like to other countries like who is prioritizing vaccination more or less effective. The rest of the region's countries is a little bit behind Kazakhstan. At the same time, they are more aggressive on the prioritizing tourism, like Uzbekistan or Kyrgyzstan is trying to kind of compete or even competing better than we are in terms of prioritizing tourism. We see some data. In this chart, we can see that the overall kind of percentage of the vaccination and the recovery score, we see that direct correlation with the more people vaccinated, the more recovery for the tourism. We see that the most kind of effective is United Arab Emirates. Then you see that US, Mexico is, even though the vaccination is less than 20%, but they're prioritizing more heavily. And this kind of leisure destination is benefiting from the kind of recovery and from the demand from the big markets, like proximity to the US is helping Mexico to recover faster, and some other strategies from different countries. I hope we can see Kazakhstan here somewhere, I don't know, closer to the faster recovery, but still we are more or less focusing on the other fields rather than on prioritizing tourism yet in Kazakhstan. Size is matter, and the size of the economy is matter even more. You see that the amount of the receipts and expenditure in tourism and the relevance to the recovery. So it's important that even you see that Russia is a good example for us, is showing like faster recovery with prioritizing of the tourism. The other markets like US and China is kind of, in terms of the volume, they have strong domestic markets. Like India is still, even though it's struggling, but based on the kind of stronger domestic markets, we see that they will be recover faster in terms of tourism. The same situation if you compare Kazakhstan to other kind of close proximity countries like Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan. We are a larger domestic market, so we can go through the crises, I would say, with less risks because of we have more or less kind of stable domestic market, while the most of the outbound markets are closed. But these outbound markets are more well organized and more strong, I would say, in terms of the faster recovery. So they are bigger players in this segment, with help of the national carriers and help with the other international carriers, it will be recovering more or less faster. If we take a look at the real market data, if we look at the Google Destinations Insight, the recent tool provided by Google, we see that what's going on with the previous year demand to the travel-related search queries in the kind of mobility, Google Mobility and Google Trends data. We see that we're more or less recovering almost close to the 100% in terms of the domestic. This is just proving that the Richard's data was more or less true. And we see that demand is following this, and airlines is actually driving the market demand, and helps to the flyers and kind of pushing the market to the more domestic travel, and thanks to the lower prices available to this market. It's the overall travel demand versus 2020 to 21. If you take a look at the promising demand, what's going on inside Kazakhstan, if you compare different kind of regions, we see that top demand is going from the Almaty and Almaty province, of course. Then where the bigger market is South Kazakhstan, then it's the demand side is Borovoi or Akmal region close to Astana or Nur-Sultan is driving this market, and then we're more or less kind of oil-rich or more richer regions in terms of the volume of the money, amount of the money. is Almaty, Atrau, and Mangistau is more or less promising, and the other industrial big kind of destinations. If in terms of the demand, Almaty is leading, then Nur-Sultan or Shymkent is following, and then other kind of new emerging destinations like Burabay, Turkestan, and then Aktau is following the demand, the demand side from the across the whole country. If we take a look at the region of the growth, is the same. We are a little bit slower than in the previous several months, and we are kind of stopped or blocked by the government in order not to recover too much faster. But still, the Akmal province is growing. The demand is like 50% higher than the previous, like 30 days. Mangistau, South Kazakhstan, and West Kazakhstan. This is where most of people choosing to go, top growth destinations. This is the particular cities which are more or less in interest for the most of the kind of B2C market. Turkestan is promising. You see the high growth. Then Zerinda is another smaller destinations in the Borovoi area. Then some other Alakol is growing, and some interest to the Baikonur and some other kind of emerging destinations across small destinations across Kazakhstan. If you take a look at the demand by region, you see that again, Almaty, top 6 or top 5 markets is Almaty, South Kazakhstan, Karaganda, and the more oil rich and industrial kind of destinations. There will be the source of the oil recovery for the tourism. At the same time, if you take a look at the kind of overall picture, what's the inbound and outbound markets demand, we're waiting for more airlines to be connected. So airlines are waiting for the permission from the governments. So both of the governments, I would say, are both of the markets are ready to recover faster, but still we are more or less blocked by the government's decision. And the fear is across the governments, kind of behind the decision of the government, because health priorities are more important than the tourism. But the same show that in other countries it's vice versa. So for example, in case of the Russia, case of Uzbekistan, showing that again, health priorities is a #1 priority, but tourism recovery and jobs and helping people go through this kind of struggle across the crisis is more important than just, or health is managed better or prioritized better in order to create more jobs in this segment. Sorry for the noise. So you see that top markets for the inbound, so a lot of Russians, Turkey, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstani people are interested in coming to Kazakhstan. And we still prioritizing Russia, Turkey, and Egypt. It's a more leisure destinations. This is more like a business destinations interest. So this is data both airlines and accommodations segment for the last 30 days. Sorry. That's all for what I want to show. I'm sorry for the noise. My kid is crying behind.
It's okay. Thank you.
If any questions, I'm glad to answer to.
Yes. Any questions to Yerkin? Please don't hesitate to ask. Yerkin, I have a question for the last slide. Can you show us?
Do you see my slide? Yes, no?
Yeah, no, not yet. Yeah, this one.
Do you see my
Okay,
slides?
so,
This one, the original.
the last one, no, the last one, the 32nd. Yeah, so we see two columns. The left column shows the demands from other countries to Kazakhstan, right? So it means that, for example, not this one. Yes. Yes, this one, yes. So it means that there are some demands, the fifth from Germany, so they would like to come to Kazakhstan, or it's opposite.
If we talk about inbound interest, is outside of Kazakhstan, people interested to come to Kazakhstan. It's for the both air segment and accommodation. So they're slightly different. Put them all together, but some of the drivers are business traffic, like many of the participants are from the kind of companies doing business in Kazakhstan. Some of the drivers are for the more or less leisure or adventure segment. But the main drive is for the business, I would say.
Okay. Okay. Yes, now it's clear. Thank you. And
for the outbound segment is vice versa. We are more. Yeah, let me comment. For the outbound is vice versa. Is more driven by leisure, and for the first is a kind of relations and business connections.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, there were some questions to Richard, but I guess it is already answered, right? Azamat,
Yeah,
do you have any
I've
other
got
questions?
some answers back. There's one thing I need to validate. If someone doesn't undertake the test on day 3, what are the consequences? I'll just validate that with our team in Georgia and come back directly to. I'm not quite sure who asked the question, but if they can send me their details, I'll send it to them back by email.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions to other speaker, to Timur or Yerkin? Okay, so if there are no questions, we can end our session. I would like to thank one more time our speakers for this very constructive presentations, for sharing with your experience and knowledge in this area. Thank you very much. And if you agree, we can also share your presentations with other members who could not participate today in our webinar.
Sure.
Okay, great. And we also share the webinar recording on our website if you agree.
Sure.
So thank you very much again, and have a very good day and evening. Yes, au revoir. Merci à tout le monde. Спасибо большое всем.
Спасибо
Всего
большое.
доброго.
До свидания.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I just got a, for those who are still on the call, I just got a response from our office in Georgia to the question is what happens if someone doesn't do their day 3 PCR test? There is a penalty. It's stringent, $2,000, and it's charged upon departure. Just to make the point there, fully vaccinated passengers don't need to have a PCR test to go to Georgia, and they don't need to have a PCR test to return back to Kazakhstan. So there's obviously a push and a drive to get people vaccinated, which I think is a good thing all in all. I hope everybody if
Okay.
whoever asked that
Thank you
particular
for this
question,
clarification.
come back to me, I'll drop it back on an email.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Yerkin, спасибо еще раз большое за презентацию. Прям такой был global analysis. Не ожидала даже.
Thank you. Не за что. Успехов, всего доброго, тогда отключаюсь. Хорошего дня.
Да, всего доброго вам
До
тоже.
свидания.
До свидания.
Спасибо большое.
Всего доброго.